27th, council workshop. Sorry, I should have waited. And first up tonight, we have Lieutenant Davis with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office with his update. Welcome.
Evening, Council, Mayor. So, obviously we're getting ready for Sisters Rodeo, or kicking off of our event season. We have an extra city deputies that'll be working throughout the weekend, and then the Sheriff's Office in general will be doing some extra DUI patrols, and then OSP will be sending over their high visibility traffic team that'll be working in and around Highway 20 between here in Bend and then here in Redmond. So we'll be ready for that. Been doing bike patrol. I don't know if any of you have seen us out on some Fridays the last few weeks. So we'll be trying to do that until the weather gets too hot, and staffing, depending on staffing. Continuing to do some enforcement out in the forest. Issued a couple of offensive littering sites, and we're coordinating with Forest Service on one camp in particular that's very visible that we're trying to find some solutions to. And then on the training note, Deputy Mike Hudson, who has a extensive history in the banking world, recently completed a certified fraud examiner
Nice.
course of study that was.
He became a banker. We got to find a new.
Yeah.
So expanding on some of that training and now formalizing it. So some of these scams and other elder abuse type fraud investigations that we encounter, that he will be a go-to expert not only for our team but for the whole office. So that just adds to our capability and kind of plays upon his previous training experience. So that was something that he did in the last 3 or 4 months. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah, that's all I have.
Does the department get a lot of fraud and scam calls, or they're getting worse or more?
We do get a lot, and the difficulty is once we start going down the rabbit trail, we quite often find it's offshore based, that it's foreign based. But we do have ones that are based in the U.S., and then with our population being on the older side here in Sisters, we get a lot of folks that fall victim to those scams. And some of the ones we've had are like the ones where they're selling a property, kind of the romance scam where I have a new boyfriend, he convinced me to sell my house, and then the proceeds disappear. And so we've had a couple of those that are pretty high profile, and then retirement accounts, things like that are getting tapped into, that it's very difficult, especially once it goes into like cryptocurrency and things like that, where the money's really difficult to track down. So we have coordinated with the FBI on cases that get to that threshold, and then our detective division. But yeah, they're difficult cases to work because quite often we start down that road and then it's offshore and there's not much we can do. So
Yeah.
yeah. But, yeah.
I have a question. I didn't make very good notes, but I saw that Redmond had just passed a new ordinance about the e-bikes / motorcycles, like the pedalless. What's going on here with that? Do you see like a lot of people out there? I mean, I see them on like farther out roads, but I haven't seen them like up on the sidewalks here in town. But is that?
I would say e-bikes are kind of part of the Wild West anymore right now, with they're becoming so prevalent. And then we're seeing it. We haven't had too many issues with juveniles. That's the real big issue, is just juveniles riding bikes that are capable of going 20 plus miles an hour, not wearing helmets and things like that, and riding on sidewalks. And I would say it hasn't been too bad thus far. I would expect this summer we'll deal with it somewhat. But we have a lot of adults that are riding them as well, that, you know, some of them have capability of going 30 plus miles an hour. So the possibility of crashes and serious injuries are going to go up with that. So yeah, but we haven't, we don't get too many complaints about it, but what we see now are more the electric dirt bikes. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the way that we can see is, if it has pedals, it's an e-bike.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have pedals or capability of pedaling, it's an electric motorcycle, most likely. So those are the ones that we've been trying to educate say, hey, you can't ride it on the road, you can't ride it on the sidewalk, you have to have, you're not wearing a helmet, those types of things. And so a lot of times it's education, getting a hold of parents and saying, Johnny can't ride his bike here, it's got to be on private property or somewhere else, but not on a city street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you see something that you think needs to be discussed here, don't hesitate.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
'Cause it's still an issue, like the state really hasn't defined it yet, right? So you don't really have a lot of teeth on citing somebody yet. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's such a
And that's
gray
where
area. Yeah.
my Wild West term is
Yeah.
just all this technology is coming online and the rules are not really in place to deal with it or give us the tools to deal with it. So, and then dealing with juveniles too, it's like we don't really want to cite juveniles for these issues, but it's education and safety is what we're kind of focusing on.
And if we see something, call the non-emergency number.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, the other day, first big campground weekend,
Mm-hmm.
always fun. And they had one of those little gasoline-powered teeny motorcycle bikes, 5 people on it.
Oh,
It was very interesting.
okay.
I don't know how they managed to keep it upright. No helmets or anything. And then I had a pickup truck go by, flatbed truck with about 10 kids riding in the back.
Okay.
Yep. So
Always.
those are the ones that worry me the most.
Yeah, and we've interacted with the new camp hosts as well and just told them, if you have any issues, unruly people, things like that, just call, don't deal with it.
He said you guys have been by and talked to them. They really appreciate it.
Yeah, they've been great so far. And I haven't heard of many calls being generated there, and we just encourage them. It's like, call. If we're busy, we'll get to it, but quite often we're right around the corner or close, and we can go deal with it when it's happening.
Hello.
Hello.
A pretty quiet Memorial Day weekend, or how'd it go?
Well, we had some stuff out of county that we helped on. There was an incident in Subtle Lake that a couple of our deputies went up and helped with. In general, just heavy traffic. We did have some DUI arrests kind of earlier in the weekend, like Thursday, Friday-ish in there. So I would say it's busy, but nothing too crazy.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You had a big response up by Black Butte on the end of the week, I think. I think the state police went by, you guys went by, and all ablazing.
Yeah. Busy.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you very much. Always appreciate it.
Janet,
Trip check was very nice. She said, police activity in this area, please slow down.
Next up, we're going to be looking at housekeeping code changes, and our planner, Sarah Vowell, is going to walk us through this. Hello. Oh, you got to hold it down a little longer.
There you go.
There we go.
Long press.
All right. Take me just a second here. I do have a presentation. Okay. Good evening. My name is Sarah Vowell. I am the Associate Planner for the City of Sisters. And this evening I'm here to talk to you about file number TA2601, which is a package of text amendments to the Sisters Development Code. These updates are housekeeping in nature, so correcting spelling and grammatical errors, code references, and outline updates. We call them housekeeping. We try and do them once a year, once every other year, just to keep the code efficient for everyone that's trying to use it. We started this process as staff back in February. On April 2nd, we held a Planning Commission workshop. And then on April 16th, the Planning Commission held a public hearing where they unanimously recommended these for approval, which brings us to this evening. And the purpose of this workshop is to discuss the amendments and get ready for a public hearing on June 10th. Also, feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have any questions. Purpose of these amendments are not to create, modify, or remove any standards. So for example, what we don't want to do is change the Christmas tree sales season to start after Halloween instead of after Thanksgiving. We also don't want to substantively change the intent of the code, so we wouldn't switch to using irresponsible lighting practices and our dark sky standards. But what we do want to do is update code references that are out of date, correct any spelling errors, any grammar errors, and correct a lot of outline issues. To help sort through these, and I'm not going to go through every single one that's in your packet, but I kind of put them all in a theme. So we've got grammar and spelling, outline and reference updates, and then code structure and code clarity. Of all of the amendments, the bulk of them are outline and reference updates, which isn't super interesting, but it is very important for the people who use the code, because when we start asking questions about certain code sections and quoting it back and forth to one another, if it's incorrect, it very quickly gets confusing. So here's a great example of an outline change. So in Exhibit B in Pine Meadow Village, we have 2 letter Bs. So this will correct that. We'll now have 1 letter B and 1 letter C. And then in Exhibit J and throughout the packet, this is the thing that you would see most often. So we have capital letters A and B, and they should be lowercase, but you'll also see switches from numbers to Roman numerals and vice versa. So just trying to create consistency throughout the code. Our lovely spelling and grammatical errors. One spelling error I found, we had incorrectly spelled amphitheaters. So fixing that in Exhibit A. And then Exhibit F, changing that sentence to be completely plural. Right now it's kind of split in between plural and singular, so just updating that. For some reference update examples, in Exhibit K, we had the accessory dwelling units for the building code that's applicable to them as the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, which is no longer correct. They're reviewed under the Oregon Residential Specialty Code. So we worked with the Deschutes County building official to come up with this sentence, which still says that all applicable state building codes need to apply to ADUs, but it doesn't name the specific code. Just in case the name ever changes again, this sentence won't have to be updated. And then in Exhibit L, we have a decision authority, which is not a phrasing that we use throughout the development code, so we're switching that to a review authority, which we do use. Code structure, or code restructuring, I should say. An example of that is in Exhibit L, landscaping and screening. Throughout that section, we have sprinkled criteria that's relevant to parking areas and landscaping them, and we want to get them all in one place so that they're easier for everyone to find. So all we did here was take 9, and it's now A, and then the paragraph that is after what was 10 is now B. But nothing changed, we just kind of reordered it. Any questions so far? Awesome. Okay. I have 2 examples of code clarity, and they're probably the most interesting things in the entire packet to me. So in Exhibit J, we have home occupations, and home occupations are a type 1 review. And that is because they have operating characteristics that cause an impact to the neighborhood. So they bring clients to site. You would see additional vehicles. You might see signage. You might see deliveries above and beyond what a normal residence would receive. So think like a hair salon in someone's house, or pet grooming, or someone running a yoga class out of their living room, that sort of thing. But we also have home-based businesses. So like your day traders, your remote customer service, data entry. Those people don't have any of those operating characteristics. If you were walking down the street, you wouldn't know that they're actually doing anything in their house, and they're not subject to a type 1 review. So we just want to make that clearer for them and everyone who's reading the code that they don't need that review. And should that ever change, like if they're an accountant and all of a sudden they do need to bring people to their house, they could absolutely apply for the type 1 review. It doesn't hold them as exempt. They could change as needed. And then F becomes G because we've added an F. Outline change. Okay, and my last example for you, code clarity. We would like to add what we're calling an illustrative depiction of the setback where temporary uses are prohibited along Cascade Avenue. And this is for us and the people that we're helping at the counter. You know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and it's often easy to look at this and know definitively I'm in or I'm out, instead of reading that paragraph of words to try and figure out if it's acceptable. Now, the onus would still be on the person applying to prove to us that they're not within the 126 feet where it's prohibited, but this is a good jumping off point, we think. Any questions about anything that I covered or anything that's in the packet?
Just go ahead. Just a quick question, more of a.
Yeah.
In reading through all the attachments, I noticed that we have sign code, which is good. I knew we did that.
We do.
Is there anything in there, I didn't see it because I was scanning, but related to the lighting of those signs in light of how we are now, as we are now looking at dark sky requirements and stuff, to be sure that any signs that are lit are done in such a way that they don't create an issue for our dark sky materials? Is it in there somewhere?
It is. It's in the dark skies standards. So when that got added, that reference was updated. The sign code admittedly could use some more work. But what I changed in there was just outline stuff.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking, somebody could just go to the sign code, put something up and light it, not having referred to the dark sky. So, just trying to avoid that
Yeah.
problem from occurring as we move forward.
That's a good note.
That
Thank
was
you.
just a curiosity thing. I didn't know if we actually had language about lighting. I figured we did some. Good job, by the way. Very clear.
Okay, good. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
I have a few items. What was the process in terms of reviewing this code? Was it just your eyeballs reading through the whole thing?
Yeah, well, yeah, scanning. So once I identified, for example, like the outline thing was the thing that caught my eye the most. So then I just went through every section and scanned it to see if the outline was following the same format everywhere. And because a development code gets written over the years by various different people and entities, it has nuance. and
Okay.
changes.
I was just curious if there was any kind of AI used or some kind of tool that
No AI.
all human labor there.
I did run the code through a spelling grammar check in Word just for spelling to make sure I didn't miss anything other than amphitheater.
Okay. No, thank you very much for this.
No AI, just Sarah I.
Just a couple brief items. One was the initials SDC
Mhm.
suddenly appear, and there's never a definition as to what that means. So if that could be added in the definitions, just like RF is in there and it says means radio frequency, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
And any plans to do the same audit for municipal code? Anybody talked about that? Because I've already seen things in the municipal code.
Typically, those happen more like a one-off, like we're doing with like the burn barrel code, which is a little bit more of a policy shift. But I don't think we've done housekeeping for the muni code some time, so perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just keep a record.
Is the process different because it's municipal instead of the development code?
Not necessarily in terms of scanning, reviewing, catching things like numbering and grammatical errors and things like that. Development code, there's a lot of interconnectedness and references. Unicode, a lot of those chapters stand alone. It's dealing with everything in the city, right, as opposed to just new development.
Okay, thanks. And then on the item where we're adding the illustrative map,
Mhm.
Did you find that when you read the text, it equated to what's being illustrated in the map? I didn't really see that.
Sure.
Let you answer that. Sorry.
I do. I think the illustrative depiction is capturing the paragraph, but I'm curious about what you saw.
Yeah, so when it says, for purposes of the subsection within 120 26 feet,
Mhm.
means a straight line measurement in a radius extending for 126 feet or less in every direction as measured from any point on the boundaries of the portion of the, that's when I kind of stop. But, so, is this, I get it when it says, coming from the middle of center line of Pine Street, center line of South Locust Street,
Mhm.
but then the top and the bottom of that illustrative map, how is that interpreted from that text?
So I went from the right-of-way, so the right-of-way line on both sides of Cascade, and then used what's called offsets in a program called Bluebeam to measure back 126 feet.
From what point?
From the closest point of the right-of-way to the property.
So So the edge of our right of way,
Yes,
Okay.
not the center line of Cascade.
not the center line, no. Right,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay.
Which is
now-
why the line gets a little funky over there towards the right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that side of the right of way is funky.
A little, yeah, a little.
Yeah.
It's the funky.
Well, and we had a lot of discussion at one
Oh,
point
yeah.
on, does East Cascade also mean Cascade? Because we were talking about that in relationship to certain vendors. Yeah, yeah.
I do think that's how the recommendation for this idea happened.
All right. Yeah, that was a big issue a couple years ago.
Very big.
Pictures always help.
I
Thanks,
think so.
Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
I enjoyed just geeking out. I read all your details,
Thank
matched
you.
it to the SDC online,
Yeah.
make sure that I was following all. I thought the document was well done. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And this was paid for with a grant?
No.
No, this isn't the grant. What's
This is not the grant.
Yeah, it's
code
a-
audit? Okay,
one, yeah.
that's,
Yeah, that one's
Or
just kicking
meeting.
off.
okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think there's a good exercise now, Sarah, as the master of our development code.
Yes.
You have to read through it in that detail.
Yeah,
That's one way to learn it.
yeah.
I find as you use it, you run into these things. And we have a running list.
Job security, very good.
There you go.
Okay, any more questions or comments for Sarah? All right, thank you very much, looks great.
Thanks for having me.
Next up is Scott Woodford, Community Development Director, with our Chapter 17 of Annexation Code drama. Oh, we have a handout?
Just for reference.
Thank you for printing that,
Yeah,
Thanks,
or
Sarah.
having her print it, or whatever happened.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So we do have close to an hour allotted to talk about this, just so everybody knows. So
Okay.
if people do
I get
have kind of
55
deeper
minutes.
questions.
What do you get, Karen?
I'll probably be dozing.
Yeah, and I think as you do the introduction, I think if you can preface it also with what you're hoping to get at the end of this 55 minutes, that might help us out pace ourselves and ask the right questions.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. This is the fourth workshop, I believe, that we've held on this topic with council. We also had a joint meeting with the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission has had one workshop on it as well. They'll, as I previously mentioned, this is a development code amendment, so they will obviously be required to weigh in on this as well. Previous meetings, we did a little bit of Annexation 101 to try to get up to speed about what these things are, and then we actually presented to you a draft ordinance with some of the initial feedback that you provided. And then we got some good feedback from the council on that, but then we kind of hit the housing part, and it became apparent that we needed to step back a little bit, and that seemed to be the subject that generated the most discussion. So this effort basically focuses on housing and kind of strips away the other elements and kind of just strips it all down to concepts. I think the idea is to get agreement on concepts, and then we can write the code language however it needs to, the specifics. So we don't need to necessarily bother with the level of detail that Sarah just talked about at this point. We'll add that in later. We also, have taken the effort to get feedback from a variety of different folks. I think we've talked to Councilor McDougall and I, and on my own, we've had 3 nonprofit affordable housing developers review it. We've also had somebody who dabbles in both affordable and market rate housing to take a look at it from, that perspective, in terms of what they think is feasible from, the developer, the overall developer perspective. And so, based on that feedback and based on the council feedback, I tried to come up with concepts that address all that feedback that we've received. I've since gotten more feedback from some of these affordable housing developers that I will share with you as we go along. that was based on the version that was in the packet. So we've got further comments, even further than you've heard so far. So what I thought I would do, it was just kind of go step by step through the concepts and kind of tell you where they came from and what they mean, see if you have any questions, and then provide a little bit of the feedback that we've received. Just thought I'd just go one by one would be the way to do it if you guys are okay with that. So this first section was a response to the question of what is the need. We had previously mimicked some Ashland requirements that had incentives for hitting the lower end of the AMI and some disincentives maybe for hitting the higher end in terms of the number of units. And the question, I guess, was how many units do we really need, and what kind of units do we need? And once we know that, then we can we know what the target is. So we took a look at what sources of information could help provide answers to that. And in your packet, I included a snippet of our housing plan that showed a breakdown of the number of units that we would need in our UGB expansion area, and then broken down by income bands, like how many units of 0 to 30%, how many units of 30 to 60. So that was one piece of information. And then we looked at the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis that was done statewide. That's kind of the state's effort to have them kind of do the housing needs analysis for the whole area using some different methodology that the methodologies and some of the pitfalls of the methodologies in the past was that you would look to the past to predict the future. And that was always a problem because we wanted to change course from what the past was somewhat so that we could start getting more workforce and affordable housing, more of the units that we need. Not to say we don't still need other units, but so that the state made that effort, and it's kind of referred to as the abbreviation is ONA. And so we compared those requirements with the city's housing plan and discovered that they were actually pretty close in terms of which strata of each income band we needed. So that made us feel pretty good that those numbers were pretty solid. It would be good to continue to kind of hash that out and make sure that those numbers are solid. But so that translated into this slide that you have up in front of you.
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
So the numbers are the needs. So moving forward in the short term, it says, for instance, here we need 100, in 1 year. I just want to.
I'm sorry, which numbers are you referring to?
Oh, I'm sorry, the ONA report.
Oh, yeah. It does a 20-year, then it does a year by year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to get that set in my head.
Yeah. So the thinking was if we could create an ordinance that magically got all the percentages of each income band, wouldn't that be great? That we're hitting the need, so that these numbers should actually add up to 100%. But
Scott, Scott, any of them that we look at can just be multiplied by 4.
Okay. And that'll get you to the 100.
Yep.
Okay. So for instance, in a total 20% of the total required affordable units would need to be for households earning 30% of the AMI or less, and maybe rental units. Typically, that lower end of the spectrum is handled through rental units and not ownership units. And then same thing, 20% of the 30 to 50%, again, rental units. And then this would be 24%, I guess, of between 50 and 80%. And that would require a minimum of 50% of them to be ownership units. And then down the line with 80 to 120%. So some of the feedback that I got from the affordable housing developers were...
Scott, just one comment, just as a reference point, because I think we've had some conversations about workforce. So like D ends up being workforce housing, for bringing, because I know Councilor Ross, is thinking about that quite a bit. So I just wanted to make that.
That's correct.
Really apparent.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So everybody that I had review this said that they love the support of the goal of the mix of income bands. However, said requiring this specific mix of affordability levels for rental housing would require getting the right landowner, developer, either nonprofit or for-profit developer funding and property management services teams in place could be tricky and could hold up housing production. It's kind of maybe trying to bite off too much in one chew. Well, they also, it relates to their funding sources. They don't have a funding source for 80 to 120% because they're dealing with state funding. 0 to 30 is often a challenge to get funding for as well. So they mentioned that you could either you could request, or it would probably necessitate different parcels meeting different income bands. Like it's probably tough to do it. Have this magically all appear on one parcel. You'd have to have some of the the lower 0 to 50 maybe on one parcel, then the 50 to 80 on another, and then the 80 to 120 on another piece for financing to make their funding work.
But doesn't that start to then cluster those particular income levels together, which is something that we said we don't want to do?
Yes. For multifamily, for apartment units, it's going to be hard not to cluster them, of course. But yeah, that's certainly a consideration.
So, I just want to jump in here for a minute. And I mean, I absolutely agree with that feedback, but want to talk about the providers we have. And so, like in Central Oregon that I know of anyway. And so when we're looking at A, that's probably our HUD housing, which is Housing Works. And then, B and C could be covered by like a Northwest Housing Alliance. They're in that area. And then B, C, and D probably could be handled by Habitat for Humanity, Thistle and Nest, and Rooted Homes. So there's kind of different people we'd be working with for those different levels. Just, I don't know if that's helpful or not. I am in this a lot, so trying to spread the knowledge.
I did the same thing.
Okay, great.
A and B, however, that was Section 8, Housing Works. So they'd go up to 50%. And then I had C as Trinity Place, Northwest Housing Alternatives, and then D being Habitat. And Habitat also for C as well. But it did the same thing, because then it kind of gives you the idea of, so was Housing Works talked to at least?
Yes, Housing Works was one of them. Habitat.
Okay.
And then also worked with Northwest Housing Alternatives because they have different, like you say, different focuses.
Was Rooting a part of that discussion?
Rooted?
Yep.
Haven't contacted Rooted yet, no.
We may want to, because that may be where we're looking at as we get down towards the D.
I think Rooted Homes covers very similar territory to Habitat, in the percentages. But I mean, I see Eliza at monthly meetings. So yeah.
I was just trying to think. I think that when they were looking at those units in Woodlands way back when, they wanted us to put some money towards that. I think they were talking workforce at that point in time. But that was 3 years ago back when. About the time that everything kind of collapsed out there with Laird leaving.
Which Habitat is, for the most part, workforce. I mean, yeah. They straddle that line, but a lot of it's workforce.
I have a question just for the group and Scott obviously as well, but are we not going to consider between 120 and 150? Did we already have that discussion and I forgot about it?
No, but that's workforce housing as well, right?
Yeah.
And that's where there was kind of some indicator, I think, Scott, in your packet about that naturally being provided or naturally affordable by us allowing for perhaps manufactured homes.
I see. Okay.
But we can call that out as another level, be specific about it.
Even if it is organic in that sense, having it allowing it to be in the D gives it a better chance of actually possibly happening, doesn't it? I mean, I think.
I would agree with that.
And it would also bring it into the realm of being able to get a city workforce housing grant if it's in the D. Is that correct?
Well, there's a couple different definitions of workforce housing depending on the program, but I think in our code it goes up to 150. I think Habitat is considering it up to 120 for their project. I think there could be kind of reverse incentives there that developers would target more of the home prices at the upper limit of 150. If you have that range between 80 to 150, you'll see more prices up in the 150.
And I totally understand it. I just brought it up because it's part of the tool, and I just want to make sure we're not missing something. And I'm not saying that I'm right, everybody else is wrong, or anything like that, for sure. I just was, one of the weaknesses I see in these AMI numbers is everybody uses different levels. And it'd be really cool if there was somebody in the affordable housing world to say, hey, let's all use the same levels. But the fact is, we don't. I mean, economists use different ones, and we have on this ONA chart or HUD chart here that we were provided with, there's 60, 80 at the top, there's 60, 80, 100, 120, 150. Down here, there's the percentages are 30, 50, and 80. It's no wonder that the public's confused, because we do this more than they do, and it's confusing to me sometimes. And I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I just wanted to make sure that on D, we weren't missing an opportunity. That's all.
I think that your comment on the concern that maybe people would target the 150 rather than the 80 if we went to 150, does it, just a thought, make sense to have an E, which is, well, hear me out, which is 120 to 150, and have a much smaller number, so maybe 2% in that range, because that starts to get up to the upper in people like administrators coming into the school building and stuff like that. They can't find places to live, but there are not going to be as many of those as there would be the folks down in the 100 to 120 AMI range. And I don't want to discourage the type of housing that we know we need in that 80 to 120 by putting 150 on instead of allowing someone just to build up to there. I mean, I don't know how we do it, but do we parse a small amount out and say that number, or do we hope for the best? I don't know. It's a good point, Michael.
I mean, I feel better just having talked about it and identifying that we can at least think about it. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you keep going?
Yeah, so I think the
circle back
takeaway
to
is that it's challenging because we have different providers to operate in different categories. It's going to be really hard to find one provider to address all these different income bands. It might take multiple ones to address it. They have different funding sources. There's really not they mentioned that the 0 to 30 and the 80 to 120% are challenging to fund. The 0 to 30% units are quite a bit more expensive to operate because they require services. So that adds to the cost, and there probably need to be some more incentives for that.
Scott, we're not, because this is pretty prescribed. We're not saying it has to be 25% of the total. It could be 25% or more, a minimum of 25%.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that word in there? Because Gary wants 30, so it's the minimum you get me off your back.
And so just providing a little bit of the, I call it free market developer, I guess, for lack of a better word, to try to distinguish it between the affordable developers. It's the, it'd be like a Hayden or a Polish or a Brooks, So the idea is the hope is to get some feedback from people who would develop this, because obviously if they're too stringent and too rigid, then we're not going to get any affordable housing, right? So it's good to get some feedback from them. For the initial one that I got back, it's a local developer, is that their opinion based on what they saw was that as written, this ordinance would not produce any affordable housing.
Yep. Sorry.
So
Well, yeah,
it's a different perspective, but it's a valuable perspective to have.
I I agree that maybe the code doesn't end up here, but I think it's really important that there is some way we keep our eye on this, because if we don't keep our eye on this, and I don't know what developers are going to think. I can't predict that, or who they're going to work with. I can't think that. But if we end up with only one of these somehow because every developer picks the same thing, that's when you end up in trouble. So I think it's really good that we've gone back and looked at this and refocused on what is it that we're looking for. But I don't know how to get there. I mean, but I think this is a great way to lay it out, Scott, just to be able to see what it is we're looking for. Like, it's a big package.
And did that developer, again, have a solution or some ideas from their perspective?
Well, the issue primarily was with the 25%. They recommended that it be lower.
Like 20 or
10.
15?
Even
or,
lower. Yeah.
20?
No lower.
Oh, lower 15. Or
Lower.
oh,
Scott, may I ask, that, I don't need to know who the developer is, but are they looking at smaller parcels, or are they thinking something bigger? Because are they looking at I'm just trying to see where they're coming from. Are they coming from, like, I'm looking at a 10-acre parcel, or are they in the big parcel?
That's a good question. They didn't distinguish that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it could have an effect.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that I appreciate their comment. I don't think that is going to be enough to make me back down from that 25 number. I think that's, we saw 10 in the first MMV. It worked. They were able to still sell houses. They made some money. They put people in homes. And we've seen that in other areas. So I think that bumping it up, is probably the smart thing to do. We're going to have some people that aren't happy with it. But I have a strong suspicion that when the building starts to hit the ground, that some of those folks who say, we can't do it if that's what it is, may find that they can. The profit margin may be different, they may have to structure different, but people want the work, they want to build. And I think we've got to use the stick on that one and try to figure out what we can do for carrots in here to make everybody step up.
Well, I don't disagree, but I also don't want to not try to understand what perspective the person giving the feedback has. That just get some context, that's all.
Agreed.
And obviously, we have little off-ramps later in the code that we're going to talk about for alternatives for developers that don't feel like they could do it that particular way and build it themselves. The fact is that we already know that there are going to be people that can't do that percentage. Okay, so what do? You provide them a few options possibly, and they either can or they can't. But we know that there are people that can. So as long as there's enough people that can, I'm not here to pick winners or losers or anything like that, but for sure, if we have a goal, we have a goal. It's okay.
And Scott, when they make that comment, which is understandable to a certain degree, is that if they had to build it versus, I know later on we talk about deeding land to another organization, something like that. Or are they just feeling like if they had to build it, it wasn't going to happen?
Well, they had some comments on both.
Okay.
Yeah. I can save those for when we get to that section, or
yeah, whatever.
They just talked about, they got, maybe it'll come to light as I move on here a little bit. Assuming you guys
We'll
are
be
ready to
coming
move.
back to this again.
We can certainly come back.
Well, no, not tonight, but, okay.
Yeah, do you want to?
I just want to know this isn't the last time we talk about this.
This is, no.
Okay.
I don't think
I have a
we're ready.
lot-
I don't think
a lot
we're
more
ready to
to
move
say.
forward yet, so it's still pretty draft. Do you guys any more questions on comments on this section? We can always come back, but ready to move forward a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, let's keep moving.
So this number 2 was in response to the discussion that we had previous workshops, where if it's pretty clear if you have a annexation that involves residential units, you can tie the requirement to the number of residential units, free market residential units they're providing. But what about the land that is in our UGB that's commercial and industrial and have no residential units? Do we require or get some type of affordable housing out of those projects. Obviously, they're not going to build units, but one discussion was that potentially a fee, also known around Central Oregon as a construction excise tax, that could go into help funding the city, or we could turn it around and give it to a nonprofit developer to help them build housing. I think a certain percentage has to go to services as well. I think the law requires that. Redmond has one, Bend has one. I don't know exactly the permit, the percentage, but it's pretty.
I looked up Ben's.
Did you?
I couldn't find
Three?
Redmond's, but Ben's is 1/3 of 1%.
Okay.
So
Yeah, pretty.
I wanted to have something to even
Go by?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a Sisters Country Economic Development meeting tomorrow, and I might take a straw poll and see what the businesses in the traded sector and who we associate with in that group, and just see what they think.
Okay, that'd be great.
Because it's basically a one-time fee if we're just looking at the CET for new development of commercial properties.
Correct.
And maybe Jordan, you can speak to this better than the rest of us, but how is that usually in other communities looked upon? Again, we talked earlier today on another conversation in the light of Oregon being kind of struggling to be a business-friendly state.
I think it's cumulative, and depending on the community you're in, right? How many fees you have on development, what your assistant development charges are, what your permit fees. I think when you have a good policy reason, if you're enacting a construction excise tax on new development for affordable housing, generally I think it would look more favorable from the general populace. Of course, the builder who has to pay out of pocket for that probably is not going to be as much of a fan. And in this case, it'd be charged on commercial and industrial who don't have another option, right, to probably change their plans to include housing or affordable housing instead, right? But the nexus of the policy there is you're attracting commercial and industrial development with the expansion of our urban growth boundary. That's going to create jobs, and we want those workers to be able to live in the city that they are working, right? And so they are paying this one-time fee to help facilitate the construction of housing for their own workers, conceivably, right? And depending on the valuation, commercial and industrial projects could be highly valued, right? So we can probably give examples of what that amount might be if you're, similar to Ben's, a third of 1% or 1% of the valuation of the construction
Just
cost.
Stick in the mud and stir it a little bit. I'm putting in a business. I know that the majority of my workers are going to be in the semi-professional to professional range, and I'm going to pay construction excise tax, whatever you want to call it. And I want it to go towards helping to build housing for the people going to be working for them. What you just basically stated. Is there going to be some sense on the part of some people that this is only going to go to fund the 20%, 30% AMI type housing as opposed to the 110 or 120% housing? I don't know how we differentiate if we collect that tax to help with affordable housing, but I think that part of the thing we need to think about, I don't know how we do it, is when we approach a business about this, should we do it? We can assure them that the funds that are being collected from that construction for that particular business would be utilized to help provide housing for the people that are going to be working in that particular business to some degree. And that may just be wishful thinking, pie in the sky type stuff. And maybe we just better take what we can get and go with it. But, I think that trying to figure out a way to soften that blow is really what's going through the back of my mind. I'm 100% behind it, but I just don't know how we try to assuage some of that concern. So, okay, I'm doing this, but it's not going to help anybody that works here.
This was a really quick math, which might not be quite right, but I came up with around $3,300 per million. So it's not it's easier to look at that way. Kind of easier to understand what we're talking about.
And is this on improvements and not on the land, usually?
It's on the improvements.
Yeah, it's on
The
the
value of
building
it.
permit,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Did you have any feedback from commercial developers?
I do not yet. That's an area that we need to work on.
Yeah, let's move on, and, yeah, we can come back to this if we have.
Yeah, I mean, this one, the questions I would have for us is just, typically construction, I think I brought this up last time, typically construction excise taxes would be applied through, this council would adopt an ordinance, right? It's a fee that goes into our fee schedule. And so we'd still need to mechanically do something like that, but by including in your annexation regulations, you're only applying it to the developments are applying to annex, and then it's subject at the point of a building permit, so it'd carry through with, the annexation agreement to the master plan or the land use application with a condition or something, versus a different policy the council can consider of just having a construction excise tax for commercial and industrial that apply citywide for the same policy purpose. I know there was discussion last time about that, because we still have lands within the existing city limits that could be developed for those purposes.
But we're discussing annexation ordinances.
I know. I'm just putting that out there. It's easier to
No.
apply something citywide than, trying
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it's a good point. I hadn't really thought of it that way. If we put it in here, we're really only applying to so we have to think, if we do this, how do we address the remainder of the city if we choose to?
Different conversation. But I get it.
Okay, so moving on, this number 3 is something that has been was in the original draft, but it's basically developer can't or does not want to build the units themselves on the property. They can provide title to some land that would go to either the city or a nonprofit affordable housing developer or a public corporation, and that here's the conditions of that transfer, that to be transferred within the annexed territory, necessitating the requirement. B is something that we added in response to some comments from some of the affordable housing developers, which is prior to the transfer that the infrastructure necessary to support the construction of the units shall be extended to the property or properties proposed for transfer by the original developer. The concern there was that, yeah, it would be great. It's nice to get some ground, but if utilities are still, a quarter mile away, what good is it? So that was response to that. I did get a comment from the free market developer about that they were concerned about that. I think it's more the timing. Right now it says that the conveyance of the land must occur prior to issuance of building permits for any residential unit within the annexed territory. The concern there was the developer's outlay for all the infrastructure before they're getting any revenue coming back in. I think we can probably work on the timing there. I mean, the conveyance of the land, we could work on the timing of that, so it's not the first building permit, so that there is an opportunity for them to soften those costs a little bit.
Such as like 25% or 50%,
Exactly.
or whatever. Pick a percentage.
Yeah, or
At least have a contract, something written in writing.
Yeah.
That this is going to happen, like as opposed to, oh yeah, we've talked to this one and they're going to do it, and
which would be the annexation agreement.
yeah,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
something with the signature and something behind it.
D, that the conveyed land shall be sized sufficiently to construct an affordable housing development, including minimum parking and other site features based on the required number of affordable units in section 1. So they have a requirement for 10 units. The idea here is that this land that they convey should be able to accommodate 10 units and all the other site features. Kind of makes sense, I think. Land shall be subject to deed restrictions and requirements for 30 years of ownership and 60 years of for rental. One comment that we've gotten from Habitat is they do not use deed restrictions. So that's going to be something, they use a land lease model. So we're going to have to make sure that we've had a couple issues with that, with the system development charge deferral program that talks about deed restrictions, and that's been an issue for them. They haven't been able to utilize it because of that.
Is there a fix to that as we do this?
I don't know, Jordan, is there a fix that Jordan's been working on?
So we're working on it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because I think it's a reasonable concern on their part. It's a different model, but it achieves the same purpose. And I think that I like what's in E. I was very happy when I read this whole section. Gary smiled. And I didn't throw anything at the computer screen or call you names. But I also read the Habitat model. And I want to be sure whatever we do, we don't exclude something that gets us to the same point with a different name.
Yeah.
So I
There's-
don't know how we do that, but I think we need to be sure that we don't inadvertently dig a hole for one while filling a hole for the other.
There's pathways. You know, the easiest path probably is just shifting more risk onto the city, which the council may be fine with when you're dealing with an affordable housing developer, because the risk is that the recording of the affordability covenant doesn't occur until the actual sale of the unit to a buyer, right, as opposed to recording the deed, because the affordable housing developer owns the land underneath. They're going to perpetually have that as an affordable housing unit. So there's ways to do it. It just is more of a policy choice on the council of that level of risk in these agreements that we would have with the developer.
Is there
It
a way
also
to,
feels like possibly an attorney who specializes in this kind of work will be able to help us a little more as more become available. There aren't really many. Getting the right words in there. The concept to me is pretty simple, but I get that the words are new.
well, the question too is can you do it as it referred in E, and then when that housing, that say Habitat, comes in and they're ready to build, that it, at the time that the property is completed, it converts to the land lease model instead. So it's got the restriction on it when it comes out. So if Habitat decides not to do it, it's still got the restriction, but they can give in knowing that when the time comes that they completed the house and they're ready to put somebody in it, then the lease model kicks in. We just reclassify that particular piece of land.
I would be more in favor of something like it has either 30 years to 60 years or a land lease model with a 99-year, affordability covenant.
Yep.
Just
Right.
something like that.
Put it in, Dano?
I'd rather have both in or not.
Yeah, that was my question, if we can just say or.
Yeah, I think we can all agree we want to
Yeah.
make this as flexible as possible,
Yeah.
just for all the different organizations that might come up. So I don't,
It's just a different
somebody
way-
figure out the
it's just a
wording.
different
and we
way to
can-
achieve the
so we
same
can look
goal.
at it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's you and attorneys or whatever. We'll be looking for it. That's all, I think.
In the last section F of this provision, transfer the title of the buildable land in accordance with this subsection shall be, this one says exempt from the development schedule requirements. It brings up a point that we have some phasing requirements in there to ensure that the affordable units are done in a reasonable time frame, that they're not like pushed all the way to the very end. There were some concerns raised by both the affordable housing developers and the free market developer. The affordable housing developers are concerned that their timing may hold up the free, because you know how it works with the funding situation these days and how long it takes, that they could be inadvertently holding up the free market units where they're waiting for the state to approve their funding or something of that nature. So it's a good point. I think we still want some assurance that the affordable units are going to get built in a reasonable time frame. But maybe there's a solution there that they could help us out with that would be more amenable.
When I look at this alternative, then does that mean if land is transferred to a nonprofit, that then the nonprofit doesn't have to follow what we saw in section 1 in in terms of the percentage of Section 8 housing and so all the
No,
different.
they would
AMIs?
have to, they would have to follow that. That's why the land, like in C that, or D, that it's conveyed, the size of the parcel is conveyed is sufficient to build the number of units that they're required.
I'd like to add something to that requirement and make sure that it's still dispersed throughout the property like we've talked about, and make sure that that is somehow added to D, and make sure that people know that you can't just give one corner of the property for all the affordable housing. We don't want that. So, yeah, so let's just make sure that we cover ourselves in that part of it. And I don't know how we do it, you know, but,
Well, I threw some language into the concepts that attempts to do that. I don't know how well I did it, but attempts to get to that.
I don't
So-
know if you need to.
I actually want to talk about that a little bit. This is not because I want things clustered, okay? It's not because of that, but one of the things, you know, we see in a couple of the latest habitat developments is that they are using the cottage code, and that is, it's going to end up with a cluster, right? So we're going to end up with some clusters. So I just want to make sure that we're not expecting to see like single home here, single home, because there is an efficiency when you do that we're going to, that's how we're going to be able to see the higher density. So I'm not saying I don't want them to be spread out. Maybe we want a cluster here, a cluster here, a cluster here, but we're not probably going to see one house, one house, one house.
No, I think that you mentioned the different levels in the first part where maybe all the 30%ers kind of have to be in the same place for funding. It's probably okay if 5% are over here and then there's 5% over there and they're all kind of the same level because it's easier for them to fund. I don't think anybody's against that.
No, and
We don't need like disbursement like every other house or anything like that.
well, and I think when I talk about that, I want to be sure that we haven't clustered all of our housing for one of these groups within one area. So in other words, if you're doing cluster style houses like you mentioned with Habitat, that doesn't mean that there can't be a market rate house in an area of market rate housing. In other words, there might be a single family home with some clustered homes and then something else. And so to me, it's the disbursement of the income levels, not the disbursement of the housing types. I think we're on the same page.
Okay. I just want to make sure because things are changing with the density changes. That's all.
And I think it'd be helpful to clarify, I would think for builders that, you know, somebody might have a property and, you know, just say like the builder you talked to before, because they're like, well, we could do 10%. And it's like, well, okay, if they deeded some land and they're, you know, because they're like, look, we don't do 0 to 60. We're going to deed our 0 to 60 portion to somebody else. But you know, we'll still take the 60 to 120 or something, you know. Just a way that to break it out, because it's not like I don't necessarily see a developer having somebody else come in and check all of these boxes. You know, I think they could come in and check some of the boxes with partnering with somebody, but so I just want to make sure that there is an ability that it's clear that it's in there, that I think a developer would know that you know, a way to record that, codify that. Am I making sense?
Mix and match.
Yeah.
I'm almost getting it. Maybe if you could
Okay.
just kind of reiterate it one more time.
I don't feel like a developer to meet the 25% is going to cut off a parcel and make somebody deal with that 25%, especially with the different income levels. They might just say, we can't do the 0 to 60% type of building. That's not what we do. So we're going to cut that off, have somebody else do that. So just a way that it's clear in there and clear for the city and PC and us as well, that when they come with a master plan, it's like, okay, we're going to do 10% of this 25% affordable. We're going to do these income brackets, and then this other partner is going to come over here and do the other part. So I just want to make that clear, because I don't really think anybody's going to come in and do that 25% then the builder's gonna just go do market rate. Is that making sense? Or sense?
I don't know.
Or is that making sense?
Does it make sense to you
Am I-
guys, I guess?
Well,
You're gonna,
what I'm hearing is that a developer might do some of the affordable housing themselves and might parcel out some of it.
So it could be
Yeah.
multiple entities building housing in one,
yeah,
affordable housing.
yeah. I just want to make sure that somewhere in here, or that it's clear
That-
to
that-
everybody that that is an option.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because it kind of, I don't want to say reads like all or nothing, but just at its face value, it could feel that way. And so, like you said, I think there could be someone in to say, hey, I can build this 100 to 150 or whatever AMI
Yeah.
stuff all day long, but I can't do the others. I'm not set up to do that.
'Cause I think, yeah, especially because of the incentives for the different brackets,
And part of
some types are just going to be better set up,
And part of it's the
for
building
that.
types, as we said earlier, that some of these are going to require more of what they're doing over at Northwest Housing Alternative style of a building than cluster homes and smaller single-family homes.
Yeah, I haven't met a builder that builds 0 to 150% yet. that whole range, at least in Central Oregon, I haven't seen one.
Good corner.
What's that?
So this gets at the discussion that council had about, should we have different requirements for different sizes of annexations? That there'd be a minimum size that would not, below that would not require affordable housing, just because of its size. Just threw 5 acres in there just as discussion. I don't know what that is. I can relate that there's been some discussion about, amongst the engineers, the city engineer and our public works department about their desire or their recommendation that 20 acres be the minimum for an annexation for infrastructure phasing purposes and infrastructure efficiency purposes, that we not bring anything less than 20 acres in at any given time.
So I have two comments.
Yeah.
I have one on this. I would prefer not to set a minimum for this and then let them off ramp if they need to. I mean, more of just like trying to pick a number feels. And then I had a question actually about that 20-acre minimum, of how that would work if somebody didn't own 20 acres. Would they have to partner? I just want to know how that would work.
That would require that to happen in that case.
And then the follow-up question is, how many of those do we have in the UGB area? Not that you need to know that right now, but are there 3 under 20 acres, or how many parcels are there out there that would be
More than 3.
Yeah, I know.
But I think that you raise a good point in that maybe not having that number. I've made no secret of the fact that I still think that AA has issues, and related to the configuration. And I am concerned that I like the 20 acres, but I also think there is some reason to be concerned that some of these parcels that are 5 acres or so that are packed all the way through here, one of them might want a commitment, they may not be able to find a partner, then that never comes in for quite a while, and that kind of defeats the purpose of the amount of land we have to have. I'm very concerned about whether we're going to see the land we think we're going to see in AA. And I realize I'm in the minority on that, and that's fine, but I'm not going to get off that horse yet. I'm going to keep riding it because I think it needs to be said. So I think we have to think about what that 20 acres means. I understand from Public Works perspective, there is a size that makes it worth doing. I get that. So not sure how you fix it, but I do have that concern.
No, I don't think it's something we shouldn't talk more about, honestly. I absolutely appreciate when we get feedback from Public Works, though. I mean, that's super helpful.
Yes.
And maybe there's ways to take that into consideration without totally shutting down the small ones? Like, ask if people can do 20 acres? I don't know, but we need to spin on that.
Okay, and just, I'm just gonna do a time check. We have about 10 minutes, give or take, and oddly, from our last conversation, the numbering is off on my page here. So I don't know how many more slides you have.
much?
Okay,
I'll go through them pretty quickly. So we
okay,
can do
well,
a
I think
wrap.
Cheryl had a question.
Yeah, just real quick, one option we could do, as opposed to acreage, is do it by the number of units, residential units. And that's what I saw, Ashland does that. They say if you're gonna be building 4 or greater residential units, then you do have to address the affordable housing requirements. Otherwise, you're exempt. So that's another option instead of acreage.
Good point.
We wouldn't allow serial annexations then for developers to avoid that.
That's what I was concerned about too.
Yeah,
That's a concern.
Was there a consideration of similar to the CET, but like a fee in lieu for smaller size residential
It's an option.
annexations?
So that they don't have to build it, but they contribute into a fund that could leverage other affordable projects.
Yeah, I had the same concern about serial annexation. If we make it so that if you chunk it up enough, you can get it. We've seen that actually happen a couple of places now. The land was divided up by individuals that all knew each other and got outside the planning process. So everybody's clever, and I don't blame them. If I could take advantage of it and I were doing it, I probably would. So I think we just need to close as many loopholes as we can.
So in the interest of time, we kind of touched on the clustering issue. I'll just this was an attempt to kind of prescribe that dispersal of units. And I think we kind of talked about it a little bit already. I just want to make sure we cover the other things. There's a provision there about the ratio of bedrooms per dwelling unit in the affordable units be equal to or greater proportion to the number of bedrooms per dwelling units in the market rate units. Got some feedback from some folks. Habitat, their biggest demand is 2-bedroom units. So they're worried that if the market rate units were more 3-bedroom, that they would be required to do more 3-bedrooms that they don't have a demand for. And then the private free market developer wasn't crazy about it either. Thought that requirement was not real workable for them. They also kind of had the same comment about there's a provision in there about nobody had a problem with the minimum floor area sizes, which is good news. There's one thing that they all agreed on.
I thought they were a little small.
Really?
300 square feet's not very big
It's small.
for studio, though.
for a studio.
I've lived in that.
I have to. Let's go.
So there's those.
Yeah.
Called it Gen X.
Yeah, there was a focus on this particular slide where the exterior materials of the affordable units be constructed using the same building materials as the other units, and that they have same or equivalent site amenities of the market rate units. And then one about energy efficiency, that the required housing units shall contain the same improvements as the market rates units related to energy efficiency. So I mentioned the bedroom concern. There was a concern about, I don't think it's the expectation that the affordable units have pools. I'm not sure, but I think, those units should have some level of amenity to make them livable. Hopefully the public parks will also provide accessible amenities for all residents there. But there was a concern about the costs, and even from the affordable housing developers, if they were required to help pay for the maintenance of some of these higher cost amenities, that's not great for affordability.
Are you talking about G, on-site amenities, Scott?
Yeah,
That if they were to build a private park, could you repeat that? That it would,
HOA fees, I think, right? Like if you had a pool or a
Yeah.
house and those type of more private HOA amenities that then would be accessible to all, just regardless of the affordability level, then they may pass on that HOA fee, making those units not affordable
That's what I'm concerned about.
in order to have those type of amenities, like a nice pool or a
Okay. Well, we're not saying they have to have a pool. This is saying that
Just an
they will be equal amenities.
yeah, if they do have a pool, they
Okay.
access is provided to.
We're not going to outlaw HOAs?
I'd like to.
That's too.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the items that I wanted to touch on. You think?
You do a good job of like dealing with these five brains.
Well, and then all the comments from
Yeah.
these other groups.
That too.
It's
That too. Yep. Thank you.
Well, it kind of brings up the discussion. Are we, do we try to strive for that perfect ordinance that addresses, kind of threads the needle and addresses everything that we want to address, or do we want to provide some general guidelines that we want people to aspire to, and then bring a plan forward to us, and we'll evaluate that. Give them a little flexibility to be nimble to the market and to propose maybe some things that we weren't thinking about.
Because that was number 6 that you just passed was,
Yeah, like an alternative plan.
Right.
But
I think it's really important because these options are going to change over time, housing types, housing materials, housing funding sources. So, I think it's great to just have the option of, what can you bring to the table? We're not the housing experts,
we can still, yeah, do that path where we'll try to write it as prescriptive as we can be to get what our needs are, but continue to have this, you got a better plan that meets the goals and objectives, hit us with it. We'll evaluate it and let you know if it meets the mark. I guess the point we wanted to make tonight is just recognizing the challenges, from all these different perspectives of trying to meet all of our wish list in one ordinance. It's a challenge. But
And is there any of this that really still shouldn't be here, or do you think all of this is acceptable for an annexation process versus something, like master planning or something down the line?
Oh, well, the trick, that as I understand it, is that affordable housing, like especially inclusionary zoning, affordable housing requirements really need to be done through like a discretionary process, like an annexation or a rezone. That inclusionary zoning is not a tool available to us through the normal land use process. So it would have to be, yeah.
So this is the right place?
This is the right place
Yeah.
for it, yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, Scott and I were talking that it's probably, worth it to continue to get more input from developers on how workable this is. And, the caution with a lot of code like this is the more prescriptive, the more, we always try for clear and objective, but in things like this, which is a more discretionary path, the more you add into it, the more unintended consequences you may have and not result in getting the results that you want. And there's other maybe pathways that Scott and I were talking to of ensuring that you're getting what you want in terms of your goals for affordable housing targets by referencing things like our housing needs analysis and the ONA studies, right, that kind of lay that out, maybe adopt some parameters by resolution or other policies that the council has, and then every annexation can be, processed through that filter versus something that really just backs staff into like evaluating, how this meets a 10-page, affordable housing requirement. So we'll continue to bring folks together and get their input.
I think the one cautionary I would have, especially after listening to what you were reading there, is that not every developer is going to want to be able to work underneath these standards, and that's okay. They may choose to build or do something else, because But I think that we need to make this as what's best for the city, what's best for the residents in the long run. And if we have a couple of folks who decide they won't build because they don't want to have to do that, that's okay, because we'll find somebody else will step into that hole and work with us instead. I firmly believe that. So, but I also like what you said. I think that we need to figure out, we kind of got the framework, but part of what we need to do now is see where we can be a little squishy to let them come in and not be so prescriptive that the big checklist on the wall. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. So, as long as we get to those numbers, I don't care how we get there.
Just to confirm, I mean, no matter what path happens, council has to sign off on it.
Right.
So,
What?
Okay, anyone have any other questions or comments?
thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Pie chart? And did you get what you need from us, or?
So, I mean, it kind of, I think we just, each time we do this, it kind of comes, we learn a little bit more, and it comes a little bit more into focus what we can do and what we want to get out of this, and how we're going to get it out of this. Is that right? Or how well,
Yeah,
you know what I meant?
7 other eyes of PC too, so
yeah,
it's really enlightening sometimes hearing those things.
yeah. All right, well, thank you very much. This concludes the workshop. All right, welcome everyone to the Sister City Council meeting, 6:30 for May 27th, 2026. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Also that part. All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Letts,
Here.
Council President McDougall,
Here.
Councilor Predin,
I'm here.
Councilor Ross,
Present?
Councilor Pellerin.
Here. All right, thank you. Then do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No nays. Thank you. All right, we can start with visitor communication.
Charlie Stevens.
And I remember, I'll remind everyone, visitor communication, please come on up, state your name and your address, and give you about 3 minutes. Oh, he's going to turn that on for you. All right, take
It's a bit
two.
of a long press.
Okay. Charlie Stevens, 1086 West Collier Glacier Drive. There's a lot of noise swirling around the community here lately about the UGB process, and it, as I watch it, one would think that the only issue associated with our process is affordable housing, or what people want to call affordable housing. And that's, first of all, that's not true. There's a lot of other things that this is supposed to accomplish besides housing. And there's also some nebulous promises about doing something to make a dent in the problem. And I don't think that that's going to happen. And I want to remind people tonight that affordability is an equation. And everybody's talking about the cost of the house, the cost of the mortgage, the monthly cost to pay, whether or not somebody has a down payment, that sort of thing. The other half is income. And I don't think people realize, I looked at 1979 to 2025 and discovered that if you use the Consumer Price Index, the cost of housing, monthly cost of housing, has gone up over 250%. Real wages, if you use the consumer price index, which is fraudulent in some ways, I'll explain in a second, went up 12%. If you don't use the CPI and you use actual inflation, it's worse. Housing went up 400%, and real income did not go up at all. So it's the income half that is really the biggest problem here. Interest rates at 7%, going from 3.5 to 7% on a $600,000 property with $120,000 down payment. And what person who's looking for affordable housing has that? It adds $1,000 a month to the mortgage. If it's a $400,000 house, it adds about $800 a month to the mortgage. If you're down at $250,000 with a $10,000 down payment, maybe, then it adds almost $700 a month to the mortgage. So the real problem here is the only people in Sisters right now that are really delivering affordable housing is Habitat for Humanity. And they can do that on any parcel inside the UGB boundary in a limited way. I think somebody said before it was 9 houses a year was their capacity. That's good. It's good to get those houses. We need a lot more people who can eliminate all these underlying factors, because you have to get the market rate of housing down by 3/4, given the income situation here, to make it truly affordable. I'm not seeing a lot of innovation here, and traditional developers that have developed a lot of this community are not going to deliver mostly affordable housing. Not going to happen. So I hope we have a way out of this, but we need to start focusing on something other than traditional development. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
It's okay.
I apologize, I can't read the last name. David? How do you say your last name? Thank you.
My name's David Bachtel. I'm at 1310 West Hill Avenue in Sisters, Oregon.
And can you speak directly into the microphone? Sorry, this is
That better?
Yeah.
David Bachtel, 1310 West Hill Avenue, Sisters, Oregon, 97759. I have a printout of my comments that I'm going to read that I'll give you afterwards. It's my understanding UGB expansion is not on tonight's agenda, so I'd like to comment on the ongoing process now during the open comment period. The long-term land use planning action currently under considered by the city is approval of the urban growth boundary expansion. This major step in the Oregon land use planning process requires a selection of areas surrounding the current urban growth boundary suitable for future expansion over a coming 20-year period. This land must meet multiple objectives for adequate housing and commercial and industrial activities, for recreation, for preservation of natural resources, and promotion of public safety, among others, for approval. A diverse representative volunteer citizens task force was established by the city to perform this task under the guidance of city staff for the benefit of all the residents in town, and includes those living outside the city limits. This process involves the identification of land areas most suitable to support the diverse multiple needs identified for projected growth of the city, not an evaluation of specific proposals for development. After the urban growth boundary expansion has been recommended and approved, area planning, including annexation criteria, zoning, and detailed requirements for various anticipated uses, are developed. At that point, development concepts may be introduced for consideration to assist in establishing or modifying the development requirements. Specific proposals for development are subsequently considered within the goals and constraints of the previously developed structure. One landowner has chosen to present a development proposal during UGB development in an attempt to short-circuit the process and to create the illusion that only their property is able to meet their definition of the city's most pressing needs. Others have chosen to honor the city's planning process and wait until the UGB process has been completed. I'd like to thank the city and most importantly, those volunteers who have spent countless hours evaluating multiple properties and alternatives for inclusion in the urban growth boundary expansion. I support the recommendation of alternative AA, which I believe represents the best overall path forward for Sisters at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, David.
For those on Zoom, if you would like to participate in visitor communication, please raise your hand. There are none.
All right, thank you. That concludes visitor communication for the evening. We do not have any presentations this evening, so we can move on and see if I can have a motion to approve our consent agenda, which this week includes just minutes from our May 13th workshop and our May 13th regular meeting.
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No nays. Thank you. All right, on to council business. So we have a continuation of deliberation and consideration of Ordinance 546, open burning provisions.
It's a lot of Asians.
There's so many Asians. We're going to talk about all of them with Jacob Smith, our co-compliance officer. Welcome, Jacob.
Hi.
We missed you. We love having you here, so
Right.
wanted you back.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Jacob Smith. I do code enforcement for the City of Sisters. I'm here to discuss Ordinance 546. This ordinance was first introduced on May 13th, 2026 in a public hearing. During that public hearing, during the council deliberations, there were several modifications suggested to the code language for this ordinance. Council decided to vote to have the continued deliberations here on today. The ordinance addresses two portions of the burning or the fire code of the City of Sisters. I'll start with the removal. 815-130, which is an open burning and burn barrel code, had some conflicting ordinance or conflicting wording with the other ordinance that we're going to get into here shortly. So that portion of code was removed in this ordinance. Some of the changes that came from May 13th, 2026 was the changes made to 81010, and that was specifically the outdoor burning of in burn barrels has been prohibited now. Under 81020, the exceptions, we added a definition for recreational fires that outlines size, location, and use for those types of fires. In addition to that, with the fire department's suggestion, we added in that the fire district can restrict all fires during red flag warning days. And that is the quick summation of, this ordinance.
All right, thank you. All right, we can move on to council deliberation. So I'll just kind of go one by one and see if anybody has any questions or comments, and I'll just start down here with Mr. Payton.
Are we supposed to know if there was any revisions to the posted ordinance? I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I think he just covered
Yeah,
the
okay.
revisions.
Yeah, then I think I'm okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yep, that's a good, what I want to see. Good job.
Okay. Just to make sure we match with fire district, fire district states on the recreational fires to not be located no less than 25 feet from a structure versus the 20 feet. So I'd like to make sure we're in alignment with the fire district on that. It could just be a typo, but, or we said 20 and it should be 25. It's 25.
It should have been from the final say from the mayor, but I could have definitely mistyped that too.
We'll blame the mayor.
Okay, so that is, everybody kind of good with that change, and we'll call it a Scrivener's error and
I think so.
can be easily fixed?
Yes, yeah, at
Okay.
least on my.
All right. That's the end of the deliberation. So, do I have a motion to read by title only?
I move to have the city manager read ordinance number 546 by title only.
Second.
Thank you. Suspenseful. All right, the motion has been made and seconded. And we're going to do a voice vote to read as title only. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And no nays, all right. The motion carries. Take it away, Mr. Wheeler.
Ordinance number 546, an ordinance amending the Sisters Municipal Code to removing conflicting open burning provisions and consolidate regulations under Chapter 8.10.
All right, thank you. Now I need a motion to approve and adopt the ordinance.
I move to approve and adopt ordinance number 546.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. We're going to do a roll call vote this time.
Mayor Letts,
Aye.
Council President McDougall,
Aye.
Councilor Predin,
Aye.
Councilor Ross,
Aye.
Councilor Pellerin.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you very much, Jacob. And
Hot topic.
no, I think because it was unanimous, yeah. Yeah, and
So we're all done?
We're done with that.
yeah.
Check.
And thanks to Council President McDougall for catching this in our code and bringing it to our attention.
That was a heavy lift.
All right, up next, we have a continued discussion of a public services rate adjustment. Erica Heitzma and team. Welcome again.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilor. Thank you for having us today. For the record, again, my name is Erica Heitzma. I'm the General Manager for Republic Services that services City of Sisters, and we're here to continue discussions regarding rate consideration increases. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. So we have two slides to go over today. I'm sorry, the next slide after that. So as a takeaway from our previous discussion, Council wanted us to look at what the rate adjustment would be if we were to maintain the services at the Sisters Recycling Center for an additional 6 months, which would be July to January. So these are the adjustments with that consideration. So looking at our residential waste stream or line of business, the total ask would be 10.25%. The breakout of that total request comes to 2.25% is for the Sisters Recycling Center. That's for that 6 months, for the 6 months remaining open. 3% for inflation, 1.3% for the disposal pass-through, and 3.7% for margin repair. Our commercial waste stream, our line of business, the ask is 9.95%, and the makeup of that is 2.55% is for the Sisters Recycling Center, 3% is for inflation, 1.3% is for disposal pass-through, and 3.1% is for margin repair. And then lastly, our industrial line of business, this remains the same as it did prior because we did not have the Sisters Recycling Center, any adjustment associated with that. But the total ask is 12%, 3% of that is for inflation, 1.3% is for disposal pass-through, and 7.7% is for the margin repair. And I know this question came up last council session where margin repair, there's a question relating to why are we asking for margin repair. This is primarily driven due to the Sisters Recycling Center and past rate cycles. That was not a consideration of our initial ask. We always held that as a separate operating agreement, and therefore the financials were not included in the City of Sisters franchise agreement or financial presentation. So that's the ask, or that's the difference in what you're seeing, and that piece of margin repair is coming up. So any questions on this particular rate consideration before we look at rate considerations with the Sisters Recycling Center closed or just providing glass service?
The industrial, you've indicated in the statement at the bottom, margin repair primarily for costs associated with Sisters Recycling Center. Industrial doesn't use the Sisters Recycling Center. Why have they got a 7.7% margin repair in their ask?
So we're asking for the margin repair across each line of business. So that's the reason why we did ask for 7.7% margin repair in this particular line of business or waste stream. And there are services that are provided through our industrial line of business. We do provide the roll-off services. So there is an impact or cost impact there.
Your statement says that it is for margin repair primarily for costs associated with the Sisters Recycling Center. I mean, I've picked on you guys for this before. If there's some other cost that's margin related for industrial, I expect to see what that is and not say that it's a Sisters Recycling Center because they don't use it. Rationale is the recycling center. Yet margin repair that you're asking for is 3.7 residential, 3.1 commercial, and 7.7 for industrial. That says to me that there was some other kind of a problem in the bookkeeping process beyond the cost of running the recycling center, and we're being expected to make that up when it is a business problem, not a city problem.
So again, they're all three waste streams. There are costs associated with utilizing the Sisters Recycling Center. The industrial line of business primarily is the line of business that provides that service due to the roll-off containers. We do have front-load containers. So we're looking at it from a cost perspective. Now, primarily residential and commercial businesses do use the recycling center for services, but for us performing the services at the Sisters Recycling Center, there are costs associated with that particular line of business, and that's why it is included in there.
You're still not making sense to me. Industrial, you keep referring to the recycling center. Industrial, you said yourself, does not utilize the recycling center, so there is no cost for the recycling center shown in the industrial piece. But you're asking for a 7.7 margin repair, and I still haven't heard a clear explanation other than the word waste stream as to what exactly, why that is so out of line with what you're asking on the others. And I also, like I said, this is a business problem, not a city problem.
So the customer...
Jordan has a comment.
Well, just is maybe a way to describe it or approach it from another angle is for the last year or two, you were servicing the recycling center at a loss of $50,000 a year, right? So you're spreading that loss now amongst all three customer classes, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And you're spreading that probably in proportionate to your business model for how many industrial customers and what they normally pay for their rate, and the commercial customers what they pay, and then residential, right?
That is correct, yes.
So I have a question.
Sure.
I don't have things from prior meetings up, so
Okay.
I'm going to need some help getting back to it. So when we look at this, if pretend we just went with this for right now, would this would get you an X, I'm asking you for the X percent profit margin for the year?
Yes, it would approximately be, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, about 10.5% operating margin.
Okay. And so
that fuel normalizes. Right now, we do not have in the projection the high fuel costs
Yes.
that are currently in today's environment.
So that would be I just want to get to somewhere from these questions. So it'd be a 10.5% margin for this year. And you would be getting to a higher margin for previous years, or you're just trying to get to a 10.5% margin this year?
For the single rolling 12 months, July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027, that is correct, just those 12 months.
So, the losses that happened in other years are gone. And so you're accepting that those are, I'm just trying to make sure I have the story right. You're accepting that those losses are gone, but you're trying to get yourselves back to a point where our agreement is getting you to a margin that's in a reasonable rate.
Correct.
So I think that may be a different story than we've been telling ourselves. What I've been hearing questioned. I asked Jordan a couple questions in our one-on-one just to understand. Apparently, some franchise agreements in other cities have a range of returns, and he said that they're usually around 8 to 12%. We do not have that in ours, so I realize it's not written, but I wanted to know, well, what is the market consider reasonable? So, to me, I realize we're sisters, but in general, what I'm hearing is that the reasonable rate of return is 8% to 12%. So I'd like to kind of reframe the question is, really, if we were to do this up here, do we feel like 10.5% is a reasonable rate of return? I mean, I think that's the question we need to be asking ourselves. Because as they've said, they're not trying to regroup the money that was lost in the previous years. They're just trying to get their margin back up. So,
all right. I know we haven't heard from Cheryl or Michael yet, so if you have questions or comments.
No, I'm willing to defer my time.
Okay.
I just wanted to know if this is through January 2027, was that right? The 6-month period, it's from July to January.
That's correct. No, it's for the Sisters Recycling Center. Yes, that is correct.
So what happens after those 6 months?
Council can decide to close the Sisters Recycling Center, or we can come back and have further discussions on whether or not we want to continue services at the Sisters Recycling Center.
So I think what I'm hearing.
Were you finished?
I'm sorry. Are you still thinking? Okay. I think what I'm hearing is that if we do close the recycling center, then so for that 1-year period, you've already considered that it would be closed for 6 months.
That is correct. Based off of, yes, what you're seeing here has that consideration that it would just be for the 6-month period. And then afterwards, again, council can decide to close it, or we could come back and have further discussions on, do we want to continue providing services? If so, it would be this cost.
I have a question. In the 10.5% profit margin, is that the same for both options?
Yes.
Another question is that I think that inflation and all the things that we're all living with over the last few years. One concern I have is that if we're going to have to increase rates again, which nobody likes, but that is just something that we have to do sometimes. Are you feeling that this will be stable for a while, for a few years? We're not going to have to come back and have this conversation except for, a few tweaks possibly.
Correct. It would just be inflationary going forward, with one caveat of not knowing fully what's happening at the landfill. That can cause inflation to run a little bit higher depending on what Deschutes County needs to do at the landfill.
The inflationary, do we have, is that in our contract, or is that just?
It's one of the considerations for the council in rate setting.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Has Deschutes County adopted their fees yet for the tipping, for the disposal?
No, not yet.
Okay, so the numbers for that are based off?
So they're projected based off of communications that they've had with us. They're indicating to us that disposal will go from $90 a ton to $95, but again, that has yet to be approved, so there's a possibility it could change.
When does that go in front of the board?
They adopt it during their budget, which is, I believe, sometime in June. That goes in front of the Board of County Commissioners to consider and approve.
Does that include the yardway at the organic?
That will be another consideration of whether or not they're going to increase yard debris disposal.
Don't they budget the tipping fee already? I mean, haven't they already put it in the budget? Hey, we're going to get this much in tipping fees, and it's based off of a number. Is that 90 or 95?
Would be 90 for the fiscal year end June 30th of 26. So they're not, I don't think, yet fully finished with their budget for the next fiscal year.
Gotcha.
But we have the 95 based on communication. We have no reason to believe.
And that's built into this 10% that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
You guys kind of know my position. You guys have been talking a lot about margin repair, and to me, honestly, there's relationship repair that needs to be done in the City of Sisters, especially with our downtown businesses. The last couple years has not been good, especially in downtown. So that's going to have a big factor on my decisions about what percentages I would consider. And I should tell the rest of council, if it's higher than I think, I may vote against it. And that's okay. I mean, that's what we do, is we judge each ourselves. So there you go.
So where I am on this margin repair is, rather, I still maintain it's a business problem and not a city problem. Somebody 2 years ago, 3 years ago didn't do it right. Not sure why that's my problem. But I think your other requests are in line based upon inflation and those sorts of things. I haven't got a problem with the 2.25, the 3, or the 1.37. Unfortunately, it went away on my screen. Let me get it back up here. There we go. For the recycling center for the rest of the half of the year, the 3% for inflation, and the 1.3 pass-through on disposable. The only compromise I am willing to make and vote for is to do 1/3 of the margin repair this year. That would be 1.25. That would get you to 7.8% on the ask, which puts us in line with other parts of the county. And next year, we won't have the recycling center factored into this, I presume. And then we can have a discussion about repairing that other piece. And whether that's done over 2 years or 1 year is a discussion we'll have at the time. But that's as far as you're going to get me. And believe me, it's been a real pull to get me to that point. So that's where Gary is. Just one person on the council, but I think that that's reasonable, and it's in line with what other people are doing. It gets you part of the way on the margin repair, and then we can look at the remainder of that when we know we don't have the 2.25, and that gets us away from that 10%, that double-digit increase, which I am not comfortable with putting into a bill going to the people in this town, especially those folks that are struggling to get by with what they're making and what they have.
For clarification, Gary, what you were proposing, was that equal across residential, commercial, industrial, or total, or when you said 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was only looking at residential.
Okay.
I think you do 1/3 on each one of them is what you do.
1/3 of what they have listed here
Yeah,
on each one.
yeah, on each one.
Okay, thank
And that's for the 6 months of recycling
No,
center
that's,
open?
yeah,
or-
6 months recycling center open, and then when we do this same discussion at this time next year, the recycling center won't be in there, presumably. Some of the margin repair will have been done, presumably, and at that point in time, we can have a discussion about what that looks like. But you really have to understand that from my perspective, having worked on the other side of the thing for a long time, is that when I make a mistake, it hurts my bottom line. It's my problem to fix it, not my customers 2 to 3 years later. So, and I'm with Michael. I think there's a lot of repair to be done to the way this community views the services we're receiving, and whether it's trash cans that are slammed on the ground so hard they fall over on their side, or whether it's no garbage being picked up downtown, or whatever that might be. the customer service perspective is much worse than it was when High Country had the contract. And I will say that at least I get an answer when I call your call center, which I didn't used to get because it went to some place in some other foreign part of the United States. So at least that's being taken care of, and I appreciate that. So that's where Gary is.
Yep, go ahead.
Since, Michael, you've got more involvement with what's going on downtown, businesses and so forth, can you just summarize some of the concerns you've been hearing?
Yeah, it's mostly appearances, and I've spoken with them separately. Everybody should know, so I could convey some of my concerns from the business community, and I appreciate that. That was good. It was a good conversation. Todd did a good job taking notes, so good for him on his second day doing that. And I explained to them, that this is not a position that I take just for Republic Services. This is a position I take all across the community, which is the thing you see the most is the most important, which because tourism is about half of our industry. Downtown, the trash cans are important. The sidewalks being clean, which is the city's problem, the city's issue, we have to do our part as well. And so the downtown trash cans, the barrels, huge issue over the last couple years. I've seen them around more lately, though, so good. It's improved within the last few months, for sure. And but that has to be addressed. And I think that there's just some trust issues also. I know it's not easy to get some of those, big dumpsters out of the trash enclosures and things get beat up. I understand that. But once in a while, it's not put back at all, or the doors aren't closed and locked like they should be. And those little things just add up a lot when it comes to the places where half the people who come to our town, they stay downtown and that's all they see. And so we just have to, I call it polishing the boot. We can be an old boot, but we still need to polish it once in a while and just make sure that it looks nice. Most of the time, mistakes can be made, but we have to get past regularly missing some of these things. And the only way to do that is A, to give feedback, and then B, on occasion, make some tough financial decisions. And that's about it. Those two things, just making sure that stuff doesn't get left in the alleys when a dumpster gets dumped. Sometimes things fall out, and we just have to have a little bit of the extra mile. And next year, I would be much more accommodating.
So I cannot speak to the business community at all, honestly. I haven't interacted with them about that portion. I do want to say for myself, my own personal customer service is great. I don't have any issues. I don't particularly care if my lid is open when I go to pull it in. And I don't get complaints from other people that they have issues. Everything's picked up on time. I get phone calls, texts, and emails if anything is wrong. And then if it's updated, I get them back. So I just want to say that not everything here is negative. I think you do hear a lot of that because I think that's where we get the feedback. But on a day-to-day basis, I see a lot of good things happening. I don't want to try to water down anything else, but I also don't want to.
I would echo you, and I mentioned this at our meeting, that the residential services, for the most part, are just perfectly fine.
I think the biggest problem I hear is when
Okay,
can gets
okay. I think this is where we're going. I was talking, Michael interrupted, and then you interrupted.
That's right, I did.
And so that, so I'm just going to call that out because we're trying to stop it.
Oh, we are. Okay. Thank you very much.
Did you read the email today? Yes.
No.
Thank you. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay. Gary, did you have a follow-up or?
Oh, no, I don't think the council president would like it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure it'll be fine because you're welcome to have your turn. I just have a clarification on the 6-month rate increase. So what happens in the second 6 months? Because I think, is that kind of the onus on us ultimately of, open or close? Are we going to have glass, not have glass? Other bells and whistles we want or don't want. But I just want to make sure that we're not coming back in 6 months and then we're wanting to do something, and that is, again, shifting the price or something. So, I'm a little bit, my issue is just trying to lock in some stability, for a certain amount of time on the price structure, so, residents and businesses know what they're dealing with. So, yeah.
Well, I would, if council goes with option one option one modified, it really would be with the intention that we are going to be closing the recycling center January 1st. So we would start communications now, right? So I wouldn't see this as we're going to revisit in 6 months, whether we're going to keep it open or not. I would take it as direction to start the process of closing that.
It just leaves the glass question hanging out there, which is not impossible to deal with, but don't want to forget that.
Yeah, and there was that other option, and basically it doesn't look like there's really a cost to providing glass recycling, but.
Correct. Yeah, I'll say that if council decides that they want to continue with just offering glass service at the Sisters Recycling Center or wherever, a box may be placed, there wouldn't be a rate increase for that service. Right now, we service that container once a month, once every other month. So really that cost would just be, absorbed. So we wouldn't ask for a rate increase. And relating to curbside glass, if council wants to consider that, that's a takeaway for us. It takes us a little bit of work to look at a pro forma. So we're going to go through that that process internally. I would expect it's going to take about 2 months, something of that nature. And then once we have that finalized, we'll come back to council and present what that looks like. And that was looking at it instead of on a monthly basis, look at it on a bi-monthly basis, and also the consideration if you want to look at, instead of 18-gallon containers, which is the little box, look at the automation of through 35-gallon containers. So we'll look at both of those options and come back to council and present some information for you all.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about that pro forma? If, we start discussing it and we wanted monthly instead of bi-monthly, do you just have it? Is it just like a percentage, or is it actually a little more expensive to do it every month? I'm just wondering if the numbers will add up, or is it close enough that we can just kind of assume it's close?
So the question is whether it's monthly or bi-monthly?
Yeah. If you give us a number for bi-monthly, can we just assume cutting it in half gets us kind of close?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Matter of fact, that's probably what we would put in the pro forma for simplicity. Yes.
Thank you. Just kind of good for me to know as we're going to discuss that as a team, right? So let's just keep that in mind. The third option.
And I was thinking, because we talked about the 18-gallon bins, and like I said, if we win that direction, like I said, I'm only comfortable with that one if we do it on the same days we do recycling, so it would be twice a month on that particular one, just because it's hard enough to remember which container you roll it on which week. Now you add another one, you only do one time a month. This small, that's the reason I like the automated thing. It may not work. John explained to me there's a CDL involved, and that can be a little more difficult.
It can be, but from a routing operational perspective, that's generally how we like to approach service expansions, especially with recycling. It should occur, or we would like it to occur on the same day your current recycling is being picked up. So that's how we would approach it. If council makes the decision that they want to go forward with that type of service, that's how we would build our routes.
And back to my comment on the service center, what I was going to say is that the biggest problem we tend to have sometimes is missed containers. Prior to the current situation you have this year, it took a lot of work to get a container picked up. Now I actually get to talk to somebody, and you generally pick it up that day or the next day. So that's what I was going to say. That has been working. Having a call center in town, i.e. Redmond or whatever it may be, means that we're getting response much faster, and I'm getting fewer complaints from folks in the neighborhood that get missed.
Good, thank you.
Any other comments?
Are we going to look at the next slide?
So the second option for consideration is really just if council made the decision to close or discontinue the services relating to the cardboard, the commingle, but only keep the glass service. This was the rate consideration that you saw with the prior meeting. Again, just to reiterate, we wouldn't be increasing costs associated with just providing the glass service because, again, it's monthly or every other month service that we provide for that one box.
Go ahead. And this would be, as of July 1st, having no more recycling center.
That's correct, yeah. So it would be July 1st that if council approves that these rates would go into consideration, and then we would discontinue services, again, for cardboard, commingle. We also do have trash boxes there. Those would be removed, and it would just be the glass box that would remain.
Are we considering that?
I don't think we have the runway to do that
Yeah,
time-wise.
I didn't think so, but
Feels like a quick change. Yeah. July is right around the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So ultimately, if I may summarize, and please correct me, we're probably just looking at the first option.
Okay.
And then we've had at least one proposal for some modifications to the margin repair. How do you others, and you're still good with what you said? So can you repeat that again so I can write that down?
Basically, it would be the, let's go back to the previous slide, please. There. It would be the 2.25% for the recycling center for 6 months, the 3.0 for inflationary, 1.3 for disposal pass-through, and then 1/3 of the margin repair at 1.25, which would give a rate of 7.8%. And my reasoning for that is twofold. That 1.25 is a little less than what the recycling center cost is, and so that means we come back next year if we decide as a council to do the rest of the margin repair, the other 2/3, it would be keeping that level right about the same. We might decide not to do that. I'm not making any promises about next year, but to me that seems to be a reasonable approach. It keeps that increase in that 7.8% range, which we've seen in other communities around the area, and I'm comfortable with that.
And for commercial industrial as well?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, the one basically take the margin repair down by pay 1/3 of each of the margin repairs. Excuse me. Thank you. I keep forgetting that I was supposed to look at that.
So that would be like 1.33% for commercial, and then industrial would be, that's hard math.
Dan's doing the math right now, so we'll have that in just a second.
He's got the spreadsheet.
He's got the spreadsheet.
2.6, I think, maybe, guessing.
I would like someone to double check this.
We're holding you to it.
I've got, I'm going with the 7.8, I didn't check that. And then 7.9 in small container commercial and 6.9 in industrial. Double checking my numbers here.
Yeah, I'm sorry I did do the math on the other ones. My brain was just
Jordan, when's this coming back to us?
next meeting.
June 10th? Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would be more inclined, I just want to talk this out, but I would be more inclined to give half the margin repair. If that would put them up over the 8% margin, which is kind of the minimal of the reasonable rates of return. And I consider that it also drops it below the 10%, keeps it below the 10% increase, which I know has a concern. And I believe it would drop the 12% under double digits as well.
I have figures for both of those now. And I have double checked Gary 7.8 and it was correct. So for residential, at 1/3 of the margin repair, it's 7.8. At 50% of the margin repair, it's 8.4. For small container, the two would be 7.9 and 8.4. And large container would be 6.9 and 8.2. I've rounded those to the 10th decimal.
To refresh my memory, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
To refresh my memory, over the last 2 years, how many increases have we had on our Republic fees?
I'm not going to remember the numbers. Just looking at Joe's brain if he does, but annual. So about this time every year.
Last one? Or is it been a year already?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've just been talking about this.
Yeah, true.
Just all this talking.
Well, and I think there was the change to bi-monthly, or I guess bi-monthly billing, which was kind of also a financial shift, I think, in our minds.
Yeah, and I think we've been talking about Sisters Recycling Center since later part of last year, so I think that's probably a mix in there as well.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Probably the last couple of years, I'm looking for a confirmation that those increases were probably inflationary and the disposal pass-through and not any additional increase. Is that what we'd be looking at? I don't have the history on that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think a couple years ago it was probably a larger increase, and then last year I think it was somewhere in the probably around 4%.
it was because last year there was the consideration of the Recycling Modernization Act, and it was still a little bit unknown whether or not, or how the glass and the transportation reimbursements would flow and impact the financials. So I think council approved a little above 4% as the rate increase. But generally the approach is, inflationary impacts to costs and disposal pass-through has been an impact as well. For context, I think in 2023 we did have a double-digit rate increase, but that was a primary driver was due to the landfill. They went from $55 a ton to $70 a ton. So that was a big part of that increase. And obviously that's tapered down over the last couple of years as far as the disposal rate increase. But generally that is, that and labor are our two largest costs for providing service. So that's generally where you see most of those cost increases driven from.
Question for Jordan. Do you want a motion tonight that you can bring something in for a council action on the next meeting? Is that typically how we do that? To give staff time to put that together?
A motion if the council would like to give us that clear direction. Otherwise, I had not of one of the proposals on the table that then we would bring back with the master fees and charges.
I think that President McDougal, that I could live with that because he said at that 8 point something, the 50% repair. I still like the 1/3 because just in my brain it works better with what's up there. But that's and I will give kudos to John's clear explanation when he met with me on all this stuff. So you need to understand that he moved the bar not very far. He would like to move it a lot further. But he did move the bar with some clear explanation and discussion.
And I know you can reward him at Sister's Bakery if you want to.
Yes, you can.
I know that he likes that. And I have one more question. We've been through about a year of the RMA, the Recycling Modernization Act. Are we expecting more changes, more money, less money, more, just more fluctuation in that? And how much of that is an impact in what we're looking at?
It's stabilized right now, but there is a lawsuit. I'm not sure if you're familiar, so that could blow it all up. But absence of that, it's very stable right now, which is good because commodities used to really swing, and RMA has stabilized that quite a bit. So absence of that lawsuit changing things, I would say this is now part of the norm, and we've got stabilized commodities for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Joe.
So if the assumption is, as Jordan had said, that the recycling center would be open for 6 months and we would then close it, then does that mean there's going to be a rate decrease seen next year?
That is completely up to council. What it also could be is it could be a reduction next year's cycle. We could do it many different ways, but the concept would be if it is closed, then it's going to be a credit, and it would certainly reduce any inflationary impact on next year's price increase, yes.
And the margin repair goes away.
Depending on how this unfolds, yes, it very well could, yes.
I would say that the people would expect that. The citizens would expect at least some sort of stabilization, small increase possibly.
Wild cards of the landfill really is, that's the piece we
Yep.
have no control over.
And I'd also say that we understand that things change. We're not immune to that either, so.
Do you have something, Sarah?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm just thinking.
My brain's just thinking about glass.
Yeah.
Are there other options to give our citizens if this is no longer
Yeah.
available?
But we don't have to decide that tonight.
No,
We can,
but it's only 6 months is pretty close.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
And
think,
we might have a different council too.
yeah. And I think there's some, I mean, obviously we've had some kind of creative solutions already around glass or ideas. And so I think if we have time to focus on that, I think maybe we can get to some conclusion.
Would it be
at a
possible
later
to
date, yeah.
pro forma on the curbside in the next couple months? Before we close the recycling center? A few months before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
It would be nice if there is council change, and there may be, but to have some of this settled prior to new council coming in so that you don't have to step back and run through the whole thing all over again with one or two new folks sitting up here. And that kind of plays into the concept of this council stays as it is until December, currently. And so that would be certainly to our benefit, given that we probably close it in December, to have all that figured out ahead of time and communicated out to the citizens.
Okay, so how is everybody feeling about the 50% option? So that, remember, that's residential, it's an increase 8.4%, commercial 8.4, and industrial 8.2.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to see it on paper, even ahead of the time it's required to be in the packet. So I have a little time to talk to some of the people that I've already been talking to and take the temperature of some of the business owners. That's just what I would like.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait to the packet to have it, right, Jordan? We'll probably have some numbers ahead of time, possibly.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all
Yeah,
that's all I'd want, just to
Right.
see whatever,
Sure.
whatever those numbers are. That's what I'd like to consider.
Would this group be comfortable with having both sets of numbers presented to us for consideration in that document that you're referring to? So the 1/3 and the 1/2 margin repair, so we can see the numbers. But I think the difference is not significant in my mind in terms of communicating it out to the public. I still like the 1.25, like I said, because to me it's just cleaner and neater, and that's what's in my head. Maybe it's because I came up with it. But I could certainly be convinced to not vote no.
Okay.
5.
Sarah? I guess here's your proposal, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Cheryl, do you have any comments? So you're kind of, so what I'm hearing is that we'd like to see the numbers in the two formats, 1/3 and the 50%. But with the idea of at our next meeting being able to confirm one of those.
Does that put you in a difficult position to have two
I mean,
sets of numbers?
Ideally, it'd be nice to be able to bring you the master fees and charges resolution with one or the other.
One number.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I was thinking in the back of my mind.
I mean, I'm comfortable with the 50%. I think it gets everybody a little bit of what they want. I think if we, Republic has a little bit more cushion, again, I'm just trying to stabilize prices. it's not going up every year. And that still might happen, but, hopefully this will give us a little cushion that that doesn't occur. And maybe could be a chance it goes down a little bit, but that's where I'm at. So, are we okay with 50% or that Jordan can kind of present into the fee schedule?
Can I help you out?
Sure.
If you have 3 people that want the 50%, I think that's enough head nods to
Yeah.
present that.
Yeah.
I
No, that's fine. I mean, I was getting there. I was just wanting to make sure there wasn't any other thoughts or. We'll get Joe to make you your own spreadsheet. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
I feel like we're getting closer.
Yes.
Okay.
We're getting pretty close.
Something's going to happen next week.
All this
Got
trash
it.
talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the trash talk. So, okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Good? All right.
He's doing
Thank
a
you.
good job.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Thank you.
Well, you all are.
Appreciate
Thank you. We
Yes, of
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to other business. So, Mr. Wheeler, do you have any response to prior meeting public comments?
No questions or comments for response.
Okay,
Been ready to deliver staff comments?
all right. Go for it.
Okay, so your next meeting is June 10th. It will be a lot of business items, but first the workshop at 5:30 will be the CLA presentation. We're all looking forward to that. Great cohort this year, and I'm sure they'll have a great presentation for you. But you'll have the budget stuff. You'll have the master fees and charges, the Republic Services that we just discussed, and perhaps a couple contract approvals as well. So it will be a long list, a long agenda, not necessarily length in terms of workshops and, council deliberations, but a lot of business items.
I'm sorry, did you say budget was also going to be?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. So all those different resolutions that come with that. Okay, the Art Advisory Board, this is for council, but also for the public. The recruitment is open until June 12th. I think we have 2 or 3 applications in, so we're looking for more. So spread the word. We're trying to do our part in getting the message out, but looking to fill that new board. And then I know we just had elections, believe it or not, here in the county. But June 3rd is officially the first day to file for November elections for the city council. So our website's been updated with that information. And I think the deadline is later in August. But again, getting the word out there about local elections here and opening that up. You saw Village Green. That pathway is now officially complete. Looks great. The park looked great this weekend for the Memorial Day event. Other things that have going on here as we switch into kind of the high season, the bronze sculptures. So our art pieces have been treated or been washed and waxed. We do that every few years to kind of maintain our art, and that might be something the Public Art Advisory Board will take on in the future for how to manage and maintain and clean our art. You also noticed flower baskets, probably maybe saw the truck going by today, but they're being hung up in the downtown. So love to see that and color returning here as things kind of spring out and green up. Star parties are starting here with our dark skies. The first one is May 31st at Cliff Clemens. Seems early at 7:30. It's definitely not dark yet. But there will be events monthly through September. All weather dependent, of course, for the star watching. And then the farmers market's kicking off on June 7th at First Street Park. So just right around the corner as well. I think I mentioned potentially having some contract approvals. We have a couple bids that are due this week. No, next week. Sorry, they're out for bid now, but due next week. The Elm Street Pathway and then the Edgington transmission main projects are both out for bid. Cascade Avenue, the ADA ramps are actually done, except for a few punch list items. really quick, I have to say. I did send a note to to ODOT and the project manager, thanking them for expediting the project. So having it substantially done and everything open, cones removed by Memorial Day was exceeded my expectations, I have to say. So it's looking pretty good. Adams is progressing. A lot of underground utilities work is going on right now. So that's most of what the digging and dirt work is going on right now. Kind of working from the west end down. But you're moving in the right direction and progressing. And then we talked a lot about annexation policy. It's all UGB related, right? And the City Planning Commission had their hearing last week on Thursday and approved it. Handful of public comment and testimony on that. And then the County Planning Commission has their public hearing tomorrow night. And again, they've had some written comments so far. Probably expect some oral testimony as well at that meeting. Scott will be attending. I think Matt and then MIG as well will be there. So yeah, it definitely heating up. Community conversations going on, public comments. There is a couple rezone applications as well that's in at the county that you might be aware of that's been generating some interest for a couple properties just outside of city limits here, unrelated to our UGB or anything like that, but obviously always of interest here in the county when those things are proposed. And then community development, other things going on. We're continuing to work on area planning. Not a lot of updates yet in terms of the work officially starting with forming, public involvement and things like that, as kind of the timing on getting through the UGB process and the annexation work. But the next step will be, as you heard in the budget, we're going to be doing utility plan updates and working with our engineers and other consultants on some of the, utility work and utility planning, and then kind of get into the meat of it later this year. And then the code audit work is still underway. We did some housekeeping tonight, or did the workshop on that. That's going to be brought back on the 10th as well for adoption. But the code audit continues to progress, and Matt Martin is our project manager for that. There will be stakeholder interviews coming up over the next few months as part of that process to help us identify problem areas in the code for development, and then put together the actual audit that I think will, by the end of the summer, we'll have a report to kind of share on the findings before we take action and propose action for the council. Wildfire meetings, we're continuing to meet on a monthly basis with the mitigation group meetings. A lot of presentations still happening. I think we have one at the end of the month with the League of Oregon Cities Executive Committee. So still a lot of interest in what Sisters is up to. And I think we had a great joint meeting with the fire board last month, or earlier this month, still May, right? Kind of talk through the council goals and the next steps there, and staff have been kind of working on gathering some research and different options for us to kind of work through with council. And then just day-to-day stuff going on in community development and public works. It's a busy season, fully staffed, except for our new employee starts next month, which we'll be happy to see. July. Got my June and July mixed up again. She'll start in July, so we're looking forward for that in the new fiscal year. So, any questions for me or staff?
Actually, a little something on the Adams Street that you folks may or may, the contractor may or may not need to be aware of is, got an email today, because I'm on their patron list from Book Festival. They're going to have Molly Tuttle at the Artworks on July 29th, which is a Wednesday, and she's going to bring a crowd. She's won 3 or 4 Emmys. She's Best Artist of the Year and all these other kinds of things in the area that she sings in, and she's received many awards. So that will be a pull, and I'm just thinking that in terms of construction work on that part of the street, making sure that we don't have any open trenches.
Yeah.
Since it starts at 6 o'clock at night, and there'll probably be some folks leaving there after dark. We don't want to lose any of our tourists who come to town for events by finding them in the bottom of the ditch the next day. July the 29th, and they may be done at that end of town by then, but I just wanted to give you a heads up because that wasn't something that was on the agenda. This is something that has just come up They just were able to book her, I think, yesterday, so.
Wow. Yep. That's great. Yeah, we'll let them know and work around that.
Yeah, just mainly, like I said, for pedestrian safety.
Yeah. Yeah, Memorial Day was popular, so if it holds up this summer, I think it's going to be a popular.
And that event is happening at the Artworks building, so lawn in the back.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, anybody want to volunteer to go first? Council updates? All right, go for it.
Quickly, I attended the Memorial Day event put on by Sisters Veterans, and it was just wonderful as usual. I got so much feedback from several of the veterans putting it on, complimenting our Public Works Department, and I did send an email to Jackson about this, that just the setup, the coordinating, making sure the sprinklers don't come on in the middle of the event, and particularly Robin helping out with some electrical issues at the very beginning in the gazebo. They just couldn't say enough about all that help. So very professional, and I wanted to pass that on. City Council rules, been working on those with Carrie and Gary, and I think we have another meeting in June. And then I will be attending the Central Oregon Housing Summit on June 9th at Eagle Crest, which I think I mentioned before. You'll be there too. And you'll be there. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Gary?
Just briefly, you stole my thunder. I was going to say, ask Public Works to congratulate our contractors. I saw the work that they did, how quickly they did it. Nothing like the disaster in Newport, nothing like the disaster in Redmond right now. These guys knew what they were doing, and they did it well. In spite of a few complaints, they were out of the way. I drove down Main Street on Thursday night. There were bollards and everything. I'm going, oh crap. I drove back down early in the morning because I had to be on that end of town at 8 o'clock, and the guy was out there picking them up and loading them all in the truck. Yeah, so before people hit town, that stuff was gone, and the work looks pretty good. So kudos to your staff and riding it, and also to the contractors for following through and doing what they promised to do. That's it.
All right. I attended the Economic Development for Central Oregon Made in Bend tour. Our Made in Sisters tour is coming up in July. But I did the Bend version, which was a lot of fun. A number of different creative, different types of businesses. So it was just great to hear their concerns, their successes, their frustrations, whether it's doing business, in Bend or Central Oregon or economy at large or things like that. So, but a lot of amazing things being made in Bend, and then a lot of analogs here because we went to Breed Love Guitars. It's like, well, we got that here, and we went to a bakery. We got that here, So, it was just kind of fun to attend that, and great event. And looking forward to the Sisters one. I think the Redmond one's next month. I think Made in Redmond tour. I think there's.
Sure.
I went to the Sisters High School fundraiser dinner sponsored by Rotary, and just wanted to give that event a shout out. I've never been to that. They're kind of the gala that they do, catered by the culinary students, and music by the concert band and the concert choir, and there was a dance performance, and highlighted their audiovisual video production program because they were running all the AV work there, showing some videos, things like that. Just a wonderful reminder of how lucky we are to have a school like that, and the school teachers we have, and this is why we do the work we do, to make sure there's try to make sure there's housing for everybody, like our teachers and our staff and the families who participate here. So just wanted to highlight that event, and thanks to Rotary and the high school and all the donors that participated with that. Attended the Memorial Day event, and Councilor Peller did a fantastic job representing the city, so it was wonderful to watch. It was a great turnout. And just the Central Oregon Cities Organization meeting, just kind of talking about priorities and moving forward. They're already starting to think about the next session starting in February. So, the folks at the State House are going to have to start talking to each other again about what they're going to be pushing forward in February, but kind of really focusing on the basin water issues and hoping to have a meeting specific to that with some of our legislators, but the calendar challenges of trying to get everybody in the same room, but I think that was kind of the biggest takeaway from that meeting.
Yeah, is that late June?
If we can get anybody to show up.
Yeah.
If not, then
There's other
might be
dates,
some other dates, so I think that was it.
It was a pretty light couple weeks. On the 18th, I attended the Regional Housing Council meeting that was kind of combined with the Houseless meeting. Director Bell from, Oregon Housing and Community Services, organization. I don't know. I got the first part right. Anyway, she was at the, for anyone, and I think most of us were there last fall, there was the dedication at the Habitat for Humanity, or the groundbreaking. She was there, and she's really got a lot of positive energy and listened to feedback. I didn't have any particular feedback, but the people from our Tri-County area that were there to give her feedback, and the way that she and her team take it in is really amazing. And I can tell that I have not been working with her personally, but I can tell that the other people working with her on, affordable housing programs are impressed with the way that her team is taking on challenges in ways that make it easier to interact. So that was a super fun meeting, even though I didn't have to say anything. Sometimes it's just best to listen. So anyway, enjoyed that.
All right, Michael.
Seems like we've had a lot of meetings together, the five of us, so I have had very few meetings without you guys. But I have had two. But I have had two. One was the regional EDCO meeting the same day as the Maiden Bend tour. We got pushed from our normal morning schedule to an afternoon, and we met at the COCC campus, which is really nice because I don't get to go there very often, so that was fun. Nothing earth-shattering there. I did present part of the Revenue Task Force Committee's recommendations on how economic development of Central Oregon as an organization can create more revenue on their own. One of the things they've already done is they've started a 501c3 trust, which is different than a 501c6, so they can accept grants and possibly do other things such as endowments and take in money, which C6 cannot do. So, they're getting more flexible, and there's a name for it that they haven't given up yet. So we don't know exactly what it is because they're getting all the rights to the websites and all the names and making sure it's right and correct. A few other recommendations too for revenue. I had a lot of fun. I ended up having 6 Zoom meetings every 2 weeks with about 4 or 5 really smart people within the organization, and it included John Stark, and he runs a good ship there, and he's the right person to do what he's doing. And I think that long term it's going to help economic development in the area, because we're not going to be able to rely on the state to fund it all the time. Money is getting tighter and tighter up there, and it's tighter on housing, it's tighter on homelessness, and it's also tighter on economic. A lot of people don't know the lottery funds were intended for economic development, and when it first started, 100% of money from the lottery funds went to economic development, and now we get 18%. It's just been eroded away, understandably in a lot of ways, maybe not understandably in others, but you know how it is with government. The money just gets tight. And the second thing I did was last week, the Planning Commission had their public hearing on the UGB amendment, and I did, as a liaison, offer to take questions. They didn't have any, and I kind of just addressed them, and I did give a little bit of history about how long this has been going on. The Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee started in 2018. That was the first time a UGB amendment was even mentioned, because it had to be in the comprehensive plan so we could get the ball rolling for all the the other steps we've had to take since then. So it's officially been going about 8 years. And a lot of people, of course, are questioning some of these steps and want to go backwards and do other things, and very hard to do, if not impossible, to reach housing goals that we currently have, that we need sooner rather than later. So I'm not saying it can't be done. There may be in other councils or other things down the road where people might want to change course, but I don't see that happening, at least in the next little while. So I did remind them of that, and then I left. Because it's a public hearing, I knew it would come before us down the road. Certainly don't want any conflict of interest, so I was there for 5 or 10 minutes and did my adieu and walked out the room. Passed, was in the paper today, so 3-2, right? And there's other things coming. They have more work to do. We have more work to do. Scott's got the most work to do, and thank you for all you're doing over there. So, but other than that, I have no more meetings.
Okay.
Just a real quick comment about Edco. You brought it up, it made me think of it. We're so lucky, and we've said this before, to have Eric. I was at REI the other day. There's a young company down in there. I've seen them 4 or 5 times. They make specialty beds for the back of RVs. They're in 15, 16 states now and expanding rapidly. I said, so you talked to Edco, they had no clue what it was. And I think that you wouldn't have that here. Now, I'm not picking on the Edco guy for Ben. There's a lot of people there and a lot going on. But I think that, we look at these trade sector startup businesses. That's what he does so well. And I am very happy that we have him here. Because I know if that company were making these devices here in, and they're manufactured in Bend, if they were making them here in Sisters, we'd be knowing about it. And I wouldn't have to walk into REI and ask them, I've seen you here 3 times. What are you guys up to? So
They could be manufacturing in Sisters.
they could be.
It could be. So, anything else? We good? All right. Well, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.